You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Hi everybody and welcome to Who Did What Now, the history podcast that's not your history class, with me your host, Katie Charlwood, history harlot and reader of books. And also a person who has to continually argue with people about the fact that I am in fact a historian. Also, yes, my voice is going/gone, because I was out in Belfast last night and I met my friend Paul and we went to dinner and then we went out for drinks, and at one point I am reenacting in its entirety this routine by Frisky and Manish, who are this comedy musical duo, and they have this sort of thing called Kate Bash, which is where they do like a mashup of Kate Nash and Kate Bush. And so I'm doing the full performance. I'm doing like the whole dance routine. It's quite a sight to be seen. And this is after me singing like just Kate Bush throughout the streets of Belfast, which is a completely normal thing to do. So yeah, we had some very interesting conversations in the dive bar, which was very loud. So between that, my voice is kind of dodgy, so I know that might not be as fun to listen to unless you're into this sort of thing, in which case, hi. Do you like jazz? Ooh, sexy. And but yeah, it was a good time. I had a good time. I had some ridiculously expensive cocktails, but they were so good and I would absolutely go back again. So I need to make sure I bring fancy clothes with me to Belfast. But yeah, I had a good time. I want to thank everybody for their consistent reviews and listening and following and sharing. Because I don't even know, did I mention it last week, the Spotify Wrapped? Where it's like this podcast is in the top 1% most followed podcasts like on Spotify, and it's in the top 5% most shared. I'm being listened to in 85 countries, and it's fucking amazing. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous. I'm so excited and just kind of awed by it all. And OMG, yeah, I got recognised. I was out to dinner with my mum on Saturday night, and I'd gone out, and at one point, like, the server, he just stops and just looks at me. He's just looking at me, and he goes, "Sorry, you look really familiar, like I've seen you on TV or something." And I turn to my mum, and she looks at me, and I look at her, and I suddenly get kind of nervous, and I'm like, I have a TikTok and an Instagram. And he goes, "That's it," and he walks away, and I was like, oh my god, is this not as cool as that being on TV? Like, I've been on the BBC. Like, don't, I'm cool, honest. But then my back was really bad because I took a pretty bad tumble on some black ice coming down a hill, and I fell, hit my back, my hip, and lucky for me, I had a scrunchie in my head, so when I hit my head off the ground, completely cushioned by the scrunchie. Fantastic. So anyway, I go back up to bed because I'm in a lot of pain and I'm just exhausted. And he comes back to my mum and he's like, "Oh no, did I embarrass her?" He was like, "I follow her and she's really cool on like Instagram." And I'm like, tee hee hee hee. It's really cute because she comes back up and she tells me this whole story. And yeah, it was really, really cool. And it's one of my friends said to me, you know, this is one person who recognised you and came up to you. Like, how many other people recognise you and don't do or say anything? Which is interesting, but also, if you do recognise me and you like my stuff, like, absolutely come speak to me. Like, unless I'm, like, telling my kid he's being an arsehole, in which case stand back for a minute until I'm done. Not that that's ever happened. Well, in public. But you know, it's absolutely fine to come up and chat and stuff. It's cool. Come talk to me. I'm a very awkward person in real life, so you might get secondhand embarrassment just by talking to me, but it's all good in the end. And I had somebody actually ask me about merch, because they were like, I was trying to get merch and I realised you don't have any. And that's for a couple of reasons. The first being, I'm not entirely sure how to do it. And I'm not sure if I have anyone that I could work with, or if I could afford, like, to pay an artist. Because, like, you know, artists die of exposure, you know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I can afford to pay somebody for their work, because I would feel like an absolute prick if I was expecting someone to work for free, you know what I mean? I mean, I can do some things myself, which is fine. I could probably do some really basic, like, merch stuff, but I really wouldn't know where to start, because most of my followers, like, I have followers the majority are in the US, UK, Ireland, Australia, and then Germany. So, like, it's fine if I was doing stuff for, like, Germany and Ireland, they can kind of fall into the same thing. Australia is another whole thing, and then the US is just whatever, and then the UK is separate from everything else. It's just because, like, tax and stuff, and there's just so much to it. And then I have people telling me that I need to get an agent, and I quite literally Googled how to get an agent, because I don't know how to do that. So I Googled that, and it gave me no help whatsoever. So if you know an agent who covers social media, digital history people, that's not even what I am. That is a terrible description. I'm a social scientist whose main expertise is in history. But the point is, like, I could probably have, I'd say, better representation. Any representation would be better representation, because I currently have zero. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, quit your jibber jabber and fact me. In fact you I will. But first, we've got to get our source on. Our sources are Sex, Sin and Celibacy in Early Christian Ireland by Lisa Bytel, The Sorcery Trial of Alice Kyteler by Sharon Davidson, From Alice Kyteler to Florence Newton, Witchcraft in Medieval Ireland by Mary McAuliffe, A Deed Without a Name, Unearthing the Legacy of Traditional Witchcraft by Morgan Lee, Diagnosing Heresy by Jennifer Barry, The Kyteler Witch by Candice Munsey-Poole, and of course we have our old favourites, History.com. So I keep pronouncing it Kyteler. It could be Kyteler, it could be Kyteler. I'm not entirely sure, because I've only ever read it, I've never heard it pronounced. Also, it's a Flemish name, and I genuinely don't know how Flemish words are pronounced, so apologies to all of the Belgians out there who are listening in and are like, oh god, what is she saying? This is ridiculous. So Dame Alice is actually the first woman in Ireland to be, like, convicted for the crime of witchcraft. And not only that, I think she actually is the first woman in Europe, like, as a whole, to be officially convicted, you know, as a witch. And it's a very kind of twisted tale, where if she had not been convicted of witchcraft, we probably wouldn't know anything about Alice. But anyway, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then let's begin. Get ready to be shocked, dear listener, because we actually have a year of birth for a woman. in the early medieval period. What? What the fuck is this? Alice was born in 1263. Do we know, what month or day? No, but we have a year, and that's as good as we're ever gonna fucking get, I swear to Christ. Her parents were Flemish merchants. Basically, in Kilkenny at the time, it was a very mixed space. So there were a lot of different nationalities there, because you had like the Normans coming in, and with that you had sort of France wasn't really France, it was more like regional based. So you would have like different areas of France and Belgium and Germany and Dutch. They would all kind of be going through this area because it was a very big trade area. And Dame Alice, her father was a very prominent, very wealthy merchant. And she happened to be their only child. So when he passed away, the only person left to run the business and carry it in his stead was Alice. And apart from that, her early life, we know sweet fuck all about it. Absolutely nothing. So when she is 17 though, Alice gets married, and she marries her first husband, William Outlaw. Yes, that is actually his name. So he is like a banker, or whatever the equivalent of a banker would be. He's like really wealthy, he's a merchant, they sort of run in the same circles because they're basically from the same class. He's also a moneylender, which is something that Alice takes on and starts doing herself. So they have at least one child, maybe two together. So they have a son also called William. So there's William Outlaw II. And they have a daughter called Rose. Maybe. There's a possibility that perhaps they had a daughter called Rose. So they're married for 5 years. And their marriage ends when William passes away. And for the next 17 years, Alice is unwed, unmarried, a widow. Unwed? What the fuck? Clearly, the painkillers are starting to kick in. So, for 17 years, Alice is a single mother to one, maybe two children. And in 1302, when she's in, what age now? Math me. 39. I did math. I added stuff up using a calculator because for some reason I could not do the mental arithmetic of 17 plus 5 plus 17. So she's 39 and Alice gets married a second time. And apparently this is suspicious. Because 3 years after she marries Adam Blund of Callan, who is also a widower, because he has children from a previous marriage. So they get married, and it's 1305, and her son William, from like her first marriage, he is now the mayor of Kilkenny. So Adam and Alice have been married for 3 years. William's now the mayor of Kilkenny. And then suddenly, Alice and Adam are accused of conspiring and murdering her first husband. Which, I mean, I understand letting the dust settle so that you don't arouse suspicion, but I feel like waiting 17 years to then get married just feels like maybe, waiting a little bit too long, like, that I understand you don't want to be, like, conspicuous, but that just feels like you're, dragging it out and kicking the arse out of it a wee bit. Don't you think? Like, wouldn't they have gotten together, I don't know, 15 years earlier, 10 even? Like, if they were going to murder one spouse, why not murder the other? Like, women died in medieval past all the time. The medieval past. In the medieval times all the time. Like, many things could have easily gone wrong. But yeah, it's such a strange thing. Like, oh, clearly, this is a thing. So they get accused, and surprisingly enough, it doesn't really come for it. It's very strange though, because she's been single for all this time, and all this time that she has been single, she's been working with her son, and they have been basically accruing wealth. So she is very wealthy, and she's a moneylender. So nobody likes a moneylender. It's not just Shylock and the Merchant of Venice, like, although that has its own xenophobic sectarian issue. But this is a woman who is independently wealthy and has power, prestige. She's connected to, like, parliaments and noble families, and she is basically kind of the same thing with Elizabeth Bathory, who was, again, independently wealthy, had power, and didn't really rely on men for shit. Although she did, work with her son to do a lot of stuff. Because probably, I'm going to assume she cared for his existence. So of course the independently wealthy, not reliant on men, of course she's going to be a target. And so her and Adam, they're married for how many years? So at some point between 1305 and 1309, Adam dies. Suddenly, mysteriously, or at the very least, an unusual death. So he dies. That being said, we're not actually told how old he is. All we know is he died. And then, so he dies, and Alice is even richer, because apparently he left her a ton of money in his will. Did he leave stuff to his other kids? Don't know, but he left it to his wife. And so Alice is substantially better off than she was before, which might have been, maybe things weren't going well for her in the money business, and that's why she remarried. Whom's to say? That's why she waited so long to get married. And then in 1309, which, still a shorter time between second and third husband than there was between first and second, she marries Richard de Val. Don't know if you're noticing a pattern here, but these are not sort of Gaelic names. Like, she's not marrying into, like, the Irish, the population. She's marrying into the Norman nobility. Because Richard, he's not a poor man. No, absolutely fucking not. He is a wealthy landholder in Tipperary. Like, he owns huge tracts of land. And they're together for, 7 years? Because he passes away in 1316. And he also has, like, children from a previous marriage. So he's also a widower. So, like, she's a widow who's marrying widowers. Which just seems to make good financial sense, I suppose, for both of them to have that. And he dies apparently suddenly and mysteriously. But, like, there's a bunch of reasons people die in the Middle Ages. It's not that mysterious, but perhaps it was. So when he passes away, Richard's sons, like, hold back, like, her widow's dower. Like, there is money that she's supposed to get as a widow. It's just like a portion of money, you know, it's to cover her, you know, living expenses, things like that, you know. And their stepchildren do not give it to her. And so she takes legal proceedings against one of her stepsons, who is also called Richard. So I think he must have been the oldest one. So because the dower, which is, you know when you get a dowry in order to get married, you know, the husband would receive a dowry for the wife. When, you know, one partner dies, the widow would receive a dower, which would, you know, be the recompensated, I suppose. So because she takes legal proceedings against Richard Jr., like her stepchildren, Richard's children, Richard the First's children, Richard Prime, they start getting really suspicious and they get really sort of dickish because they're like, we would have had that money had she not demanded it, because they very much almost had it. But because she was like, fuck this for a game of soldiers, you give me my money. Which meant they had considerably less. And she had a good chunk more. So, because of all this already, you know, the people of Kilkenny weren't super excited about Alice's existence at the best time. And what really adds salt to that wound is that Alice gets married for a fourth time the very same year that her previous husband dies. So she is widowed and remarried in 1316. Now, this could be an extra sort of age thing, because remember, at this point she's 53 years old. So she's 53 years old in the Middle Ages. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a teenager from the 1980s, but they look so fucking old. Like, you know when you watch old TV shows and you're like, why are they trying to convince us this clearly 40-year-old man is a teenager? You look at any yearbook from the 1980s and they all look like they're in their late 30s, early 40s. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't know if it's the hair. I don't know if it's like the fact that none of them are wearing sunscreen throughout their lives. Whatever it is, it just makes them look really fucking old. Like, a 50-year-old person 20 years ago does not look the same age as a 50-year-old person today. Like, we just age better, maybe? I mean, maybe they aged better back in the Middle Ages, but clearly not. So, back to the story, fuck, tangents, is Alice marries John Lepeur. Jean Lepeur. And they are married for 8 years. Had to think there for a second because that is also math. So John is also a widower. He also has children from a previous marriage. I'm starting to think that Alice has a very specific type. It always seems to be nobility who have, you know, lost a spouse and have children from their previous marriage. It just seems to be a thing. So they were together for 8 years, and in the last sort of months of his life, John tells like the bishop that he thinks he's being poisoned. Being a part of a royal family might seem enticing, but more often than not, it comes at the expense of everything else, like your freedom, your privacy, and sometimes even your head. Wondery's new podcast, Even the Royals, pulls back the curtain on royal families, past and present, from all over the world, to show you the darker side of what it means to be royalty. From icons like Grace Kelly, Oscar-winning actress turned Princess of Monaco, who the world saw as the ultimate good girl. She mastered playing a happy wife and mother, but beneath it all, she was desperately lonely. Grace spent her whole life working towards perfection, and it ultimately cost her her happiness. Or King Ludwig II from Bavaria. He was only 18 when his father died, leaving the crown to him and a duty to rule that he never wanted. He refused to lead.
and used the funds from the royal treasury to further his extreme love of opera. But this choice eventually cost him the crown and his life. Follow Even the Royals on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge Even the Royals ad-free right now on Wondery Plus.
The regular season is heating up, new stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half and the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Because he's feeling really sick. So his hair is getting silver patches and is falling out. Now the silver patches, I'm going to say, is probably age, but it is coming on very, very quickly. So his nails are going funny, he's really ill, and it basically sounds like arsenic poisoning to me, but clearly their dosage isn't correct, but whatever. So he dies anyway. And when he dies, the Bishop Richard de la Dread, who I've probably butchered his name, he wants to get, like, Alice just fucking locked up. So he, along with many stepchildren from all of these previous things, they want Alice done and gone for. So before John the Poor died, even though he thought he was being poisoned, had still changed his will to benefit Alice and her son, William Outlaw. Yes. So the bishop is fucking pissed because this woman is living her life and doing all the stuff she wants to do. So he tries to get her arrested, because he's trying to get her arrested on the fact that she's a poisoner. And all these stepchildren are like, she clearly bewitched him to change the will and to benefit her and to give her all his shit. And then, after she, magically hoodwinked him, she poisoned him. And the bishop's like, fucking witchcraft. Because this is, a nobility tension issue. Because even though, in mainland Britain, murdering one another is not really cool, across the rest of the places where, British people were, noble feuds were happening all the fucking time. And the way the secular courts worked was, most of the time, anyone who was accused, or any noble who was accused of, murdering another noble, for the most part, they got off. I know. This is shocking news. Absolutely shocking news. You are surprised at this information, that the rich person got away with literal murder. So in 1324, the bishop is trying hard as fuck to get Alice arrested. And so he starts writing to the Chancellor of Ireland, Roger Outlaw, to make this happen. Unfortunately for the bishop, Roger Outlaw just so happens to be the brother of Alice's first husband and uncle to her son. So he's demanding she be arrested, and he's trying to use Inquisition from defending the faith from 1298 as the reason to lock her up. Roger is kind of nah, because the bishop is the secular trial, shouldn't happen. It has to be an ecclesiastical trial. Basically because if she's accused of witchcraft, which is far more taboo and far more like dodgy than just a rich woman who got rid of other rich people, where she would have been acquitted of her crimes, if she's accused of witchcraft, which is like this massive fucking issue in a ridiculously Christian country, then this would give, leave for him to basically carte blanche to do what the fuck he wanted with Alice. So the Chancellor's like, how about this? How about instead of locking her up, why don't we excommunicate her from the church for at least 40 days before the trial? So this automatically delays the proceedings, because if she's excommunicated, if she's not, part of the church, she cannot be put on trial by the church. And what this does is this gives Alice just enough time to get the fuck out of Dodge and get to Roger Outlaw. So the bishop is pissed. He's mad as fuck because he starts accusing Richard of harbouring heretics. And it becomes this massive fucking thing. Roger is investigated by this commission, and they, again, you're going to be shocked at this information, they clear him of any wrongdoing. So whatever happened, I think Alice must have just sidestepped out the way, and Alice and her son William, they are officially charged with the crimes of heresy. Now, accusing very rich, very noble, very well-connected people of being heretics might not be the smartest move for somebody. So, while he does this, William contacts Sir Arnold Lepore, who may or may not be connected to his last stepfather. I'm not sure. But he is a senior official in Dublin who gets the bishop fucking thrown in prison in Kilkenny Castle. And by prison, it's probably a fucking dungeon, you know what I mean? So, but he's a bishop, right? So you cannot keep the bishop locked up forever. So eventually, the bishop gets out. And because what he does is, this is actually really, it's smart. Because he is the bishop, he's in charge of the diocese. He refuses, he blocks all sort of religious proceedings. So there's no mass, there's no marriages, there's no funeral rites. None of this can happen because the bishop is locked up, because he bans it all. So eventually they have to fucking leave him and let him out. And once the bishop is free, he is like a bear with a burnt arse. He is fucking pissed and he is gunning for Alice. And so he is ready to get her charged. He wants to get her just locked up. He is focused on this task. And so he accuses Alice and a bunch of accomplices, and he investigates them for literal months. And they're accused of a bunch of fucking charges. There's 7 official ecclesiastical charges all in all. One is denying the power of Christ and the church. And because effectively not being super Christian was akin to worshipping the devil. If you weren't super Christian, you were totally a fucking devil worshipper. There was no in between. Yay or nay. The second thing they were accused of was sacrificing animals to these very specific demons: Artis, Phileas, and Robin Artisan. Very specific demons. That's where that came from. I have no idea. So the third thing she's accused of is asking demons for advice on witchcraft. There's also, number 4, having sexual relationship with the incubus Robert Addison, who often took the forms of like animals, or an Ethiopian, or Abyssinian, I suppose they would have been at the time, which, okay, we're gonna circle back to that one, I think. Okay, number 5, holding coven meetings and burning candles in the church at night without permission. You can, I can excuse the witchcraft, but I cannot accept you burning candles at night without permission. Fuck me sideways. So apparently this coven had like Robert of Bristol, Petronilla de Meath, Meath's daughter Sarah, Annetta Lange, Eva de Brownstone, William Payne de Boley, Alice Favour, John Sissick, Ellen Sissick, Galrison. Like, it was a big smorgasbord of people. Number 6, making dark magic based ointments, powders or potions, including the horrific ingredients such as the body parts of unbaptized children, worms, and chicken innards. And all these potions were used to corrupt her husbands. And the last thing is obviously bewitching and killing her husbands to take the money for herself and her only biological son. So we're going to circle back to number 4, which is the sexual relationship. So here's something that made them accuse Alice of witchcraft. 1, may have been fucking someone who is not white, which, I don't know about you, seems just a tad racist to me. No? Actually, considering the black person they were accusing of her fucking is just the embodiment of an actual fucking demon. Or not like a fucking demon, but like a demon who does also fuck. I mean, it's a whole thing. But the best part of this is that when they were like looking through her stuff and going into her room, they found this item in her like bedside area that they said was kind of looked like a pipe but wasn't a pipe and was anointed with oil. So they assumed that this mysterious phallic shaped device or item was some kind of like totem for like witchcraft and sorcery, when if you look at all the evidence for it, all evidence points to it's a dildo. I've spoken about this before and I'm sure it will not be the last time, but there are dildos that currently exist that we know predate the written word. Like, they have been around for quite literally thousands of years. But Alice had a dildo in her nightstand. And instead of, like, logic, like, whenever you mention to anyone about these dildos, like, the amount of people that go, oh, well, maybe it was a tool for this, maybe it was a tool for that, and I'm like, mate, that is a cock. Like, that is a penis. Like, that is the shape of it. That is a fucking dildo. Like, get over it. Like, stop trying to excuse it with, like, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and looks physically like a duck, it's a motherfucking duck. Like, it's quacking in your face. Get over it. Stop saying it's a goose. But yeah, it's this whole thing that one of the reasons she gets accused of witchcraft is because of sexual deviance, which is a dildo. So the bishop is trying to get like all these people to confess, and Alice is just not having it. She's not saying shit. So for months, she doesn't confess. William doesn't confess. He does, however, apologise for, getting the bishop arrested. And because he comes out and apologises and does this, he kind of gets like a really lenient sentence. Like it's very lenient compared to what everyone else gets. So after like this stalemate that's going on for like months, because I think the bishop is just mainly dealing with pride at this point, but he manages to get his hands on Petronilla de Meath, who is Alice's servant, maid. Petronilla is tortured, like actually tortured. And, they use the term flogging as if that's, well, we got her to talk by flogging. Yeah, you whipped her and caused her unsurmountable pain until she confessed to a crime she didn't commit. Because so like she's confessing to this witchcraft and sorcery, and that there are these like demons around, and they would collect herbs and collected bugs and boiled brains and mixed the potions and poisons and did offerings to these 3 demons. And it was like this, but she was like tortured for quite a long period of time, and surprisingly enough, like so Petronilla is flogged and is then burnt at the stake on the 3rd of November 1324. Because, she's charged of witchcraft because, like, she confessed, ergo she was involved. So she actually ends up being, I think, the first person, like murdered because she was accused of witchcraft in Ireland, like, officially. Like, sentenced to death because of it. And Alice takes Petronilla's daughter. At some point during this ordeal, like, she takes her daughter and she fucks off to England because the woman has money, she has means, and I don't know whether she was taking this girl to protect her or so that she had a servant. Whom's to say? So she fucks off, and William, he's like accused of like heresy, he's accused of perjury for lying on the stand, he's accused of adultery because apparently he's also fucking demons, and he gets accused of all this stuff. But like most courts in the country just like absolutely refuse to try this very wealthy man, like this well-connected man. And William, he gets like convicted, he gets excommunicated, and he even gets like imprisoned for a wee bit. But he's like, whoops, I'm very sorry, please forgive me. And the bishop's like, okay, cool. And he actually manages to get like recommunicated because he goes to visit the Holy Land. He's like, look, I did a thing, it's great. So Alice is fucked off, and there's like no more records of her existing, which she could have easily gone there to like England and just given a different name. Would anyone know? Absolutely fucking not. They wouldn't have known. But yeah, that is the story of Alice Kyteler, the first women to be accused of witchcraft, like officially, in Ireland and or Europe. So ends our story of Alice Kyteler. If you liked this story or liked my retelling of it and didn't mind that I butchered so many fucking names and that I've probably missed out a chunk of stuff and gone on a tangent because I am losing my voice and my brain and will to exist. If you liked this story, rate and review 5 stars. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you do your podcasts, you rate me and you rate me well. Because I appreciate it. It helps bump me up the charts, and I'm just feeling crappy, so it would really help if you want to support the podcast. We have a tip jar on I'm the only one here. I have a tip jar. It's just paypal.com. You can go on the Beacons link, which is either on the Instagram or the TikTok. I don't know. If you feel like sending things, there's an Amazon wishlist. God, it's been a long day. So that's there. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter. You'll either find me by like Who Did What Now PD or Who Did What Now Pod, depending on how many characters they let me use. So, recommendation time. I am gonna recommend White Lotus to watch. White Lotus on, I think it's season 2 that's on there, on Netflix. Just watch it, it's great. The book I'm going to recommend is China Rich Girlfriend. I just started reading it. It was one of the first times in a long time I've read a book just for pleasure and not for like research. And I loved Crazy Rich Asians, and China Rich Girlfriend is just as good. Also, it helps that I did manage to get a copy of the book, like, because the cover was damaged a bit, so I got it for like £3 instead of however much it's supposed to cost. I'll take the damaged cover. I don't give a fuck. And for listening, you know what? I want everybody to go listen to the Grease 2 soundtrack, because most of it is dodgy as hell. Like, some of the songs are absolutely amazing. I mean, Do It For Our Country. You don't have to be patriotic to love that man singing to you. Like, I feel like that man was very responsible for a lot of, like, girls' sexual awakening. And it's even funnier because, like when you consider that a gay man is responsible for the sexual awakening of so many women, like, it's just funny. But yet, no, that is just... And he's doing the walking towards her and he's singing it. I love him. But yes, go listen to that. If there's ever a movie they should remake, I think they should remake Grease 2, but get like some more writers involved and some more musicians involved and just like redo it. Just like rewrite it. Like, keep some of the songs. I think there's like half the songs you can keep and the rest you can just fuck off because they're no good. But anyway, that is me done ranting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with my voice. And there's probably like points in this where it's just gone really quiet. And that's where I've paused to have a coughing fit and then re-record. So sorry about that. Sorry about my voice. And hopefully normal services will resume next week where it'll be a bit more fun, a bit more uplifting. And if you've got anything like recommendations or stuff that you really think would be interesting for me to like chat about or whatever, just like tweet me or DM me or whatever. It's like you can email me too. My emails are always open. If you send me death threats though, that's just not cool. I'm not into that. But anyway, with that, I shall bid you all good night, adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, my friends, bye bye.